understand. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are
Good evening, everyone. We're very excited tonight to be having our second episode of Harm Reduction Series History 101, and we are super honored tonight to have really special guests coming from Boston town. And we have Stephen Wright from the Boston Public Health Commission, harm reduction hero, and by his side, Walter Smith, another harm reduction hero of ours from Boston. And both Stephen and Walter work primarily in Boston town with African American communities and Hispanic communities, working alongside them, people who use drugs and inject drugs. And you might remember from our last episode, Gary Langis, he's back again here. And we're gonna get talking. And I think this is gonna be a really special time. So thank you for being here, everybody. And if we can start off, Stephen, just telling us a little bit about why you love harm reduction. I know you've started a little already, but you can tell us more.
One of the reasons I love harm reduction is because I know it works. And, in some minimal ways, I'm evidence and proof of that. Because I used drugs for a long time, and it affected me in a lot of different ways. It affected my life, my relationships. But kind of being on the other side of that now has given me a real strong perspective on why harm reduction works. So my man here was able to help me make some of those transitions. Walter practiced harm reduction on me even before I knew what it was and how it was working. And so that's why I'm a fan of it.
Thank you. Walter, did you want to add anything around why, I guess, how you fell in love with harm reduction and why you think it's important?
Well, I grew up and, around drugs. I grew up around all my life, drugs was. And so one of the things that I learned is particularly from my own relationship with drugs that I knew that however they identified me, I knew for a long time that I didn't know how to live my life without self-medicating. I never identified with an addict, and I didn't mess with people who did because to me they were dangerous, you know what I'm saying? They caused more problems. But just thinking about it, I think about, what Steve was just saying, and I think about, other people, how brilliant they were, and that, they were just self-medicating, you know what I'm saying? And that sometimes I realized that, people just get disqualified from life, you know what I'm saying? Because they use chemicals that allow them to function in a maximum capacity, until they realize, or it comes to the point where they're not doctors, so they don't really know enough about their drug use, and the drug use gets better than them, So, I'm fortunate and I'm glad in a lot of respect that the HIV virus presented itself because, when that virus came, everybody was impacted. So a lot of people who resisted to using it, their children, their families, wives, husbands were impacted, and it became carte blanche. It was like whoever can do anything. And for me, that was a great time because it allowed us to use what we knew, and we was able to save people's lives and do many, many more things besides that, and I'm really, bothered by the fact that, now they talk about evidence-based, but, I really feel like had they been monitoring, what we were doing, then we would have enough evidence, what I'm saying, to continue to perpetuate what we were doing, and we would even have greater outcomes. So that's why I really like harm reduction, because it saves people's lives, truly.
True. Thank you. Gary, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it was just nice hearing these dudes. Yeah, I mean, I stand by everything both of them said.
You guys have known each other a long time, right?
And yeah, and that's one of the things, you know, that harm reduction has given a lot of us too. It's like I'm into in Walter and Stephen's life, you know, somewhere along the way, you know, like we go back quite a ways, you know, quite a ways, especially, you know, like around harm reduction, you know, like, and so we've had the opportunity to meet probably 25 years there, you know, like a long time ago. And it's that's another gift of harm reduction. When I think the last time I was here, we talked about the love of harm reduction and stuff like that. And that's like, you know, like I love these guys like brothers. You know what I mean? Like we couldn't just walk past each other on the street, you know. And it's always a pleasure to bump into them. I mean, Stephen I see occasionally. Walter I haven't seen too much for
Oh, wow.
several years, you know, like, and it's like, you know, it's a gift to be able to, you know, like this is the, you know, being involved with harm reduction, you know, like it just never goes away. I mean, I can think of a million things that we've done together, like, you know, traveling to Miami and stuff, and things like that, you know, like, yeah, no, it's not,
You know,
that's great.
I was thinking about Gary, you know, and Gary had a kind of courage, you know, that allowed me to become courageous in a different way. I remember doing the outreach in Lynn, and I remember, you know, Gary was very adamant about, you know, giving out syringes. And I remember when he was arrested, and, you know, he was arrested, you know, and I think he had maybe 100 syringes, and they was talking about giving him a year for each syringe. So he was facing like 100 years, right? And I'm like, you know what, my black self, there's no way in the world I'm going out there and trying to get, because that's all they want is an opportunity to grab me. And I wouldn't have no lawyer, no nothing. I would have been, you know, just put right in jail, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But the courage that he had, you know, it really made me look. It made me have to think about, you know, like, you know, he was there and he was just doing it despite whatever the consequence was. And so, you know, in a lot of sense, he was a hero for me, but it was courageous, you know what I'm saying? And it gave me a different perspective on him. You know, I don't want to call myself a racist person, but I was clear that there was a difference between white people and black people. Always was clear about that. And, but, you know, the fact of the matter was when we were using, you know, there were a lot of things, you know, that, you know, we had in common. And that made me realize, you know, one of the things that we was all human, you know what I mean? So, and we all had something to give to each other. But they were, you know, white people was coming into our community because we was the only ones that really had services, you know, from the beginning we had, I think East Boston, they had a Meridian House, but we had First Incorporated, and we had a Third Nail, and they were very, very significant drug programs, and they were really did a lot for race relations, because I remember starting, you know, we didn't have anything, you know, fighting the government to get money, but the minute we started allowing white people to come into our program, right, they brought their resources. So, you know, the Italians came in, they had the food down at the north end, they had all the food. Once we started bringing the kids in, then, you know, that we started taking our van down to what was it, New Market? I mean, what was the name?
Haymarket.
Yeah.
And coming back to the program with van loads full of produce, you know what I'm saying? We ate fresh food, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, it was a give and take type of thing, you know, but it was so clearly, you know, you help our child, it was clear, you know, you help our child, we'll do anything for you, you know what I'm saying? Change a whole lot of things, you know what I'm saying? And they had a different feeling. They came to our programs, they came to our cookout, you know what I'm saying? So we were doing race relations back then, as far as I'm concerned. And so, you know, and I think back about what was the good things, and, you know, and I'm really disturbed on a lot of those because, you know, what to me seemed to happen, you know, we lose things once we kind of fix things, you know. So I'm saying, I don't want to say they take it, but, you know, when I think about the things we did, like, you know, we really ran the longest users group probably in the country. We ran an active users group for about 10 years. We probably had about 400 groups over the period, and we probably served 8,000 consumers every week. You know what I'm saying? And that, so to me, that's enough. We had enough longevity for someone to come in and say, let's follow this model. You know what I'm saying? So again, when they talk about evidence-based, but not only is there no evidence-based, there's no evidence that we were ever based. If anyone was to know, they would not know. Oh, rocks comp. They won't even know rocks comp. That's how, to me, how devastating and how, things happen. I don't want to put blame there, you know what I'm saying? But things happen in our community. So we ran this group, and the things that we did, should have been, in my opinion, again, they should have been model programs. They should have been taken to every, ghetto, if you want to call it, in the country, because it worked. It worked for everybody. So, for me, that's the biggest thing. Why aren't people with this COVID virus, we're back again with harm reduction, and we're talking about, all these new things that they want to implement, motivational interviewing, and, we're doing this with Edith Springer, you know what I'm saying? In the early 2000s, 2000, 2001, 2002, we was doing motivation. And so now these kids going to school, and I got to go to training to get my license renewed, and they're presenting these things like the new technology, the new strategy, you know what I'm saying? And these kids are getting there, and they have no idea, of the practical implications of it, and there's no evidence. Motivational interviewing, stages of change. Being Gary who should be teaching this level 2, you know what I'm saying? Not only here's the skill, but let's show you how this works. You know what I'm saying? Let's be able to do this, Fran Fanal, all of this kind of stuff that, and it's like, how do they just make it disappear? So to me, you gotta make the people, the providers disappear. So, so the providers, no one's there that really knows it and understands it. Then you don't have to worry about it. It's easy to be able to say it's new. So I become very disturbed when I got to take the training in order to get CEUs to keep my license renewed, and I'm having them say this, and they're saying this, and all the people that they're training, none of them look like me. You know what I'm saying? And and I'm not saying you are older, but not in color. You know what I'm saying? They should have the young social workers, but who wants to go in that? Because from my perspective, they present it like it's a dead end. There's no money in it, and it doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? So who wants to be a part of that? You know what I'm saying? So those are the things that disturb me, about this. You know what I'm saying? Now, so for me, without blame, guilt, judgment, or fault, part of my goal, my personal goal, you know what I'm saying, is to be able to say, we can't let this happen. We have to use this COVID situation as an opportunity. So when Steve was talking about the interview, I was really excited about coming, you know what I'm saying, because I wanted to make sure that the voice, you know what I'm saying, not just for me, even though, I know I'm a pioneer, but at the same time I realized that my value in this in terms of saving people's lives, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like anybody brought out the people, who could really do things. They got houses now, they got their kids in college, they really feel like they're really doing something. So they're not gonna create no waves, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna probably feel too good about the things I say either, but everybody's life is valuable. Everybody's life is valuable.
Very true. Thank you. I'll draw that altar. Thank you.
Amen.
Word.
Amen.
Just a lot to think about.
Thank you.
Stephen, do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the mentors for you in the movement, or how you got started? And I know maybe one of them's next to you, but just kind of like what that looks like for young people, right, coming up that want to know what harm reduction is really about. Because I think Walter's really right. We hear a lot of different definitions of harm reduction now. It's changing. It's getting into a lot of places that people are deciding what it means to them and then changing it. So, yeah.
Who would ever thought they'd have harm reduction in the detox? And here we go. For me, the mentors, what I've come to understand about life is that one of the ways that it works, and it works well, is that you're connected to other people. You're never going to get to anything great by yourself. So if you don't have some people in the car with you, the journey is not going to be the same. So it's about the connections. You know, I sit here with Gary and Walter. The first time that I did needle exchange, I was in Mission Hill Projects with Harry Lino. And I know that Harry is Gary's, you know what I mean? And so we're all connected, you know? And so this is like the early 90s. And he had the truck, he went to the back of his truck, he's got like 1,000 needles. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's saying, yeah, we gotta go up here and see so-and-so. He's knocking on the door, hey, yo, it's me. And they opening the door, right? They're not letting nobody in. Hey, Harry. And so, you know, it's about the connections and the people. And, you know, so it's not that, you know, we're going to do anything great alone, but together, we've been able to do some very significant things. You know, if I tell you some of the backstory between me and Walter met in jail. You know, and one of my golden rules was I didn't make friends in jail.
He charmed you.
I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't go to jail to be friendly because that's not usually how it works. But we met in jail. And, you know, beyond that, you know, we've had 30 years of being connected and together and all that. But, you know, so it's not the story that you would think it is. But when you're able to pull back and see it through a different lens, it's very easy to understand. You know? And so one of the things that Walter always says is about the people. People are more important than the money or the policy or any of that, because the policies would tell us that these people are supposed to go to jail or they're supposed to be arrested. Now we come to the new days. As the population changed, that we're needing this service, the policies changed. The priorities changed. What was valuable and what was important changed. But it didn't really change for us because we always thought it was the people. But now you have a different group that has a stronger political constituency, parents that are paying taxes and have good standing in communities somewhere. And so it's a very different animal. But it's really about, you know, each individual person. You know, sometimes when I go to work, because I work at Mass and Cass, and people come in the door, these people are so just beaten up, downtrodden. You know, you have to, if you speculate, you're going to say, geez, you must have had a really terrible life. Some hard things had to happen to them. But hard things are still happening to them every day. But somehow these people, you know, they find a way to be generous, to be kind. Hey, Steve, good to see you. I haven't seen you. You know, people are just nice. You know, and you wouldn't anticipate it. You would think that that's what you're going to see when you know, walk down the block and you see these people interacting with each other or interacting with the police or whoever may be in the neighborhood. They're just, you know, really nice, caring people who just find themselves in a tough position.
Where any of us could be. Right?
At any given time.
So we talked a little bit about the changes of harm reduction. I guess I want to hear, and I know that Sarah Mackin will be very upset with me if I don't dive into this question a little bit, but just when you speak about those changes and the funding and more money going into services because it's a certain demographic of people, right? I guess, do you want to tell me more about that, or what that, when we look at a lot of harm reduction programs, there aren't a lot of brown and black folks in those programs, working for those programs, being, part of those programs in the community, but they are in the community doing that all of the time. But yet, when we look at like programs like ours here or other programs, the representation isn't there a lot. And so I guess maybe what are your thoughts on that? And is that about the way the work's been set up? Have you seen that change in their, when you talk about the old days and doing the work on the street? And I guess it maybe depends on the city or the place you are and what you're doing and all of those things too. But I know when I go to the harm reduction meetings and look around that I go to for the programs in Massachusetts, there's not enough brown and black folks there, right? So like, and it doesn't have to be managers or people running programs, but just in programs. And I might not be asking the question the right way, so I hope I'm getting at it.
I think one thing that we talk about,
and women, I should also say.
All right, and women,
yes.
but like, we go into the programs and there's black folks working in some of the programs, but I'm, getting back to the leadership of the programs or leaders of who's running the organizations, I don't see a lot, like in Massachusetts, because I'm going to base this in Mass, that like there's not a lot of people of color that are head of harm reduction organizations. Like I can go to New York, right? Mm-hmm. And I know I've been to several programs down there that are run by black and brown folks. Do you know what I mean? But we don't see it as much up here. And, I've learned from everybody, like that around my harm reduction. It didn't matter what color you were. Like I was introduced by a black man into harm reduction. And it's a community that was totally impacted. I mean, I think about like, you guys down around Dudley and stuff like that years and years and years ago, how impacted that community was. And there were some leaders back then, like Rhoda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She was one of my persons that I looked up to, she was a leader, There was George too. George was down there.
George
Kenny, mm-hmm. Right? But I don't see enough of it, and there's enough knowledge within the community. There's enough understanding of harm reduction, and that I can't understand that. Do you know what I mean? I just can't.
Not to put too fine a point on it, Gary, but racism is real.
Yeah, I know it is.
That was kind of what I was trying to ask in my question, but I wanted to.
And when you have people who, one thing I say, people who know more about you than you know about yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's easier for them to push their agenda. You know what I'm saying? So at one point in time, we were very much needed. And so my perspective is this, they, whoever, however, but, in the African American community, the term of specialists, people who are, substance abuse specialists, it's defined a lot by recovery, okay? So in other words, what happens is that you're a professional based on how many years you have clean and sober, the term they use. So you know what I'm saying? If you have 25 years clean and sober, then, you're like a specialist. You know what I mean? So therefore, when you have real specialists, it's like, I tell them, listen, I'm a specialist, I'm in this shit all day. I'm in this shit, you know what I'm saying? There's no way you're going to be in this shit all day, I'm getting shit on you, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, when you go to the dentist's office, you don't go to your dentist and say, yo, let me see how many cavities do you got before I decide to let you, work on my teeth. Someone come back and say, yo, how you get that pretty smile, Steve? So I went to Gary's dental, because that's what I'm going to Gary's
Don't
too.
ever go to Gary's dental.
Let's go to Gary's dental, you know what I'm saying? But when it comes to being a specialist, they'll try to like, if you use, I said, listen, it's not my problem, I self-medicate, you know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with my abilities to administer care. I am a substance abuse specialist. Why? Because I've done it all. I've done it for a long time. You know what I'm saying? And it's all about saving people's lives. You know what I mean? So you have the recovery community, and for some reason, the powers that be, they endorse that. They endorse that in the African American community as being the specialist. See, so for me now, what happens is that these people move on. As I said, they put them in positions. They're these same people who come through harm reduction to get to where they're at. But when you get there, because of the recovery, they like the recovery community because it's an abstinent base. It's free first of all. So in your community, you can go and get the best care because you can go to NAA. It don't cost nothing. Matter of fact, you come and you make contributions. So that's a great thing. It's not like going to Spofford Hall or Conference Park. If you have employees, assistance programs, you got to pay $28,000 or $30,000 for 30 days of care. And you can go to NAA and pay $1 in the box yourself. And the government, nobody has to pay nobody, employees, assistance. Nobody's got to pay for that. So to me, all those things are kind of entwined together. And the recovery community, to me, it's an esteem thing. So it's like, we're abstinent based. We don't use nothing. We don't, no. And so that to me becomes another part of the problem because it's abstinent based. So they get to sell that and they sell it to the whole community. So they become looked at as the authorities in the communities. And so whatever that authority says goes. So, everybody's like saying, are you clean or sober? And those are not terms that are associated with health. Clean and dirty, that's not health. You know what I'm saying? So it's perpetuated and it's so insidious and it's subtle. You know what I'm saying? And it makes sense to people. But they don't realize and understand. Dead people don't get better. You know what I'm saying? So when the harm reduction came around, it was able to see, this person had 10 years clean and sober. And they decided to use one time, and they needed a harm reductionist to tell them, don't do the whole shot. If you gotta, don't do, you ain't had that enough. This is different out here today. You know what I'm saying? Do a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And then there will be a lot more people alive. People going into jail, coming out of jail. Oh, you're clean, you're sober. You know what I'm saying? Good. These people need to have access to harm reductionists. They need to have people saying what we know. The data says how long it's going to be. The data tells you person's going to come out and use. But the data is not telling you how many people that's going to use and die. But the statistics tell you how many people who came out of jail and started using and died. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's those type of things. You need to have people in there, culturally competent people. I remember I was going to Steve, and I went to the harm. To the engage. What's the name of your center? Where the needles was at?
A-Hope?
So at A-Hope. No.
The tent.
The tent.
No,
Engagement
it's
center.
the
Engagement
Patio?
But anyway, on the wall, it had all the people who died. And I looked at the wall and I said, damn, Steve, black people ain't dying no more? But he gave me an education. He said to me, Walter, I said, why is all the white people up there? His first thing he told me was like, it was the consumers that put those people's pictures and stuff up there. And why did they put them up there culturally? Why? Because white people, when they die, they put their people in obituaries. Users read the papers. They read the obituaries all the time, especially white ones, because they're concerned about who's living and dying. So when you go up there, you've seen it. And I seen one picture up there of a black person. And Steve told me, he said, the reason why that person's picture's up there, because that person used with their father. So their father was concerned, You know what I'm saying? And when he put the person's picture up there. So, you know, that's a cultural competency. So when you start talking to these people, they start presenting, oh, you know, best practice. And I asked the question, well, what about cultural competency? And they said, well, it's no different. You know, cultural competency is, you know, the best practices from research. But what do you ain't getting no data from us. That's not our data. That's not, you know, you know, consistent with our culture and the things that we do. So, like, you know, it's very subtle. You know, you really need cultural competent people to teach other people about cultural competencies, because people are not coming in. If you ain't coming to get drugs in the community, if you ain't coming to get needles, then you might be doing an internship if you can't get one somewhere else, so you can get, you know, your college credits or whatever. But you're not. What do you need in the community to come in to develop a cultural competency? You know what I'm saying? So those things are very, very important when it comes to providing services to people. To me, that's why you can take a great program out of the community and no one misses it. It's just like it's like it never existed, and that's one of my major concerns, that we've had great services in it. And you know, we had a methadone program, cultural competency. This methadone program was for the African American people, the Black Caucus. Said these people need their own program. So, you know, and so however it was, you know, and Steve educated me to all of this stuff. He's like, yo, you know, it's the peaceful movement student, and the reason why they got it, because, you know, they had to agree to do this. And how did Rox Comp get the methadone assessment and treatment program? Because the program went up for bids, because peaceful movement, whatever. And so, but it was and it was for African American community. So how does it leave without somebody saying, well, we're taking this program from the African American community. We're not grouped in with all the rest of them, you know, Bradford Street and, you know, and all these other programs. They wasn't earmarked for us. You know what I'm saying? So if it's earmarked, somebody needed to be there, you know, to be able to say, you know, you can't take this. You know what I'm saying? But before they could do that, you know, and I tried to say something. And I really believe that's what put me in a bad situation with these people down there, because I knew they came in on a Friday night and they tried to do some kind of stuff, and I knew it wasn't right because I had some information. But at the same time, I didn't have no power, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I'm lucky I didn't probably end up in jail like the good Dr. Kishore, you know what I'm saying, who was in the way, you know what I'm saying, when they had the treatment improvement protocol. So I knew as a professional that they were getting ready to make these changes, and they didn't just stop. You know what I'm saying? It was the process. But that's what professionals know. They understand that, you know, versus how many days do you have clean and sober? Oh, yeah, you know, the lullaby rock you to kind of sleep type of thing. And I'm not saying that to say anything about people, you know, who are able to abstain for long periods of time, especially if that's their personal goal and desire. But I think it's very important that it becomes clearly stated to the community, the African American community, that there's a difference between somebody in recovery and a professional provider. Especially what they're trying to do now with everything is trauma-informed care. You know what I'm saying? The ACE studies. There are a lot of people who have no idea about all of this stuff. So I'm saying, well, listen, if it's trauma then, it's trauma now. You know what I'm saying? Well, you should recompensate us. Let these people out of jail, because, you know, they really wasn't criminals. They were traumatized, you know what I'm saying? But they don't want nobody to say that there, you know? That's the kind of way I look at it. So those are the kind of things that, you know, I become overwhelmed, you know, and I look for opportunities like this to be able to have a voice. And it's probably not going to be enough, because they might just shut the video down when they hear it, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, to me, you know, that's the difference. You know, when you start looking at that, then you start looking at professional doctors, professional researchers. So the community's now looking at somebody to say, well, who should I listen to really determine whether this COVID vaccine is significant or not? You know what I'm saying? There's no context, no frame of reference, so there's still the same thing. Oh, I don't trust. You know what I'm saying? You got black researchers, you got doctors, you got all of these type of things going on. So we should be further away based on the progress that we made when we was dealing with the same issues from the culture around the HIV/AIDS epidemic. When they were black people calling it the ninja and, you know what I'm saying, in these hot. And they were allowing their brothers and their sisters and their mothers and uncles to die. They wouldn't hold them, they wouldn't touch them from the dogma. You know what I'm saying? So we got clear evidence that these things, you know, are absurd, it's not real, but it's nobody to be able, there's nobody that can present it. You know what I'm saying? Even today, because in their mind, they don't see them as, you know, community-based professional. Because somehow or another, it's making it look like we don't ever aspire, we don't never ever get there. And if we do, we're Henry Gates or we're Cornell West in the institutions, you know what I'm saying, that are not valuable, you know, in certain communities. You know, other communities they might be looked at, but, you know, academic community, but in the everyday normal average person, just understanding cultural competency, you know how your people think. You know what I'm saying? They believe that money's gonna solve everything, so they know that. So if I give you a little money, it's not gonna be difficult to keep your mouth shut. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they gave money to kill Malcolm X. They gave money to kill Martin Luther King. You know what I'm saying? So they know more about us than we know about ourselves in general. So to me, I think it's very important that I try to be diplomatic as I can to say, I'm not trying to blame anybody for this. The shit's in motion, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, if you want to fix something, you got to know what's broke. You know what I'm saying? Without blame. This is, you know, it's broke. I'm not going to blame anybody, but I know it's broke, so let's fix it because we can have the outcome. Because until you do that, more people are dying. You know what I'm saying? You know, more people are saying, I can't really deal with you, child, because I got to go to work. You know, more people are saying, that's what's wrong with you. I give you everything now. When you believe that, you really do. But you don't understand the person needs your time, your attention, and your direction. So, you know, and I just want to conclude that by saying the thing that really got me the most was when all these white kids started dying. You know, I really had a great appreciation for white mothers. Like when the HIV epidemic was going on, I had a great appreciation for gay men, white gay men. You know what I'm saying? I had the same appreciation for these white mothers because when their children started dying, this whole harm reduction, and you know what I'm saying, that's why you can go to the police station and the police will take you to a detox. Why? Because the mother came there and saying, listen, you know, and why did it said to the husband, yo, you sleep on the couch tonight, Joe. Go get down there and talk to Sergeant such and such, you know what I'm saying? Move his position because we want this to be in place. And so, you know what I'm saying? You understand that about a culture. You understand that about a white culture. You understand that about the gay culture without judgment. You know, I didn't create these things, but they're cultures, they're people, and people care. And so when you see these people taking these kind of action, they know that my child, if they die, they're not going to get better. And they know there's a strong possibility that their child's going to die. Why? Because their child's best friend died and their best friend died. You know what I'm saying? So these are the kind of things that I think are very important when we deal with harm reduction. It's just not needle exchange anymore. Needle exchange is a great thing, but harm reduction is seat belts. You know what I'm saying? It's seat belts. You know what I'm saying? Harm reduction was the black mother, you know, teaching her little black son at 6 years old, don't look that white man in the eye. And you better not say nothing to that white woman. That's all harm reduction to me. You understand what I'm saying? So it's bigger, and because I understand it, I think I can help my community, the people in the community, as a professional, understand that so that they can begin to start thinking bigger and broader about the issue of harm reduction. Harm reduction saves lives on a whole lot of levels. It saves the government money. You know what I'm saying? It does so many great things. You know what I'm saying? Keeps hospital beds free. You know what I'm saying? This is just, it's too vast for us to keep on allowing them to keep us in our community thinking about enabling this person to use drugs or not, moralistically, because they know we're a moral people, because that's all we had. You know what I'm saying? But we're bigger than that now. So I'm gonna shut up, and I hope that I made a point, and I hope that what I said makes sense to people. You know, because sometimes I think it's just emotion, but it's not. I know it's not emotion. It's frustration. You know, it's disappointment. You know what I'm saying? And I know I'm a professional. So no, you know, I know that, you know, it's the most important thing to me, what you do with your life. You know, your life, the value of your life is determined by the value you create with it. That's how I think. That's how I've been living. You know what I mean? So, you know, to me, we have to, especially in our communities, we have to make sure that, you know, we get that harm reduction is a medical model. It's beyond the little kind of things that, you know, the average everyday person wants to think about and have an argument and fight, you know, to prevent it from happening. So.
Thank you. I was ready, Walter, but I wasn't ready for
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen, I wanted to just go back to one of the things just when we were talking about jobs and people of color not being represented, and you said racism is real. Do you think within hiring practices, do you think, like, I guess I just was wondering more about what your thoughts were around
Okay.
why, and also I know it's a big question, so.
It is a big question, but
Yeah.
we're going to try and take a little bite out of it. What happens is that people are comfortable dealing with people that look like them. So if you decide today that you're going to buy a house, you're going to hope the people that live next door are people that you like or that have something in common with you, that go to your same church or that. So these are the types of decisions we make all the time. It's about our biases. Our biases are always present in employment. You're going to find comfort, you're going to feel okay with somebody that looks like you. It is sometimes a very difficult task to open up your bias, because we all have bias. You know what I mean? What are you going to have for dinner tonight? You want steak, chicken? You know, I don't eat this, I got to have that. Those are your biases, and we all have them, and to a certain extent, we all act on them. And so, to change some of that thinking is really an arduous process. It's a step by step, consciously. I'll give you an example. People looked at the NFL. They said, okay, they got all these black players. Maybe we should have some black coaches. So what they said is that, okay, we're not going to just hire black coaches, but what we'll do, we'll make sure some black coaches get interviews. So every time there's a job opening, you know, we're going to make sure that you interview 2 or 3 black guys in case they might be ready to be a coach. But even in the process, just being a part of the process begins to groom you, begins to help you understand the questions that people are asking, helps you kind of figure out what it is that they're looking for, so that when they ask you the questions, you can give an answer that is going to be helpful. So it's a process. So anytime that I go into a room, and the room is all white people, I mean, I don't necessarily feel uncomfortable, because I've been in a lot of situations in my life where I find myself in those rooms. But sometimes I like to call it out. And just by calling it out makes people reassess, take a look, think about it. You know, and so that's, you know, part of the process. And for America, it's a long, difficult process. You know, when we talk about money and capitalism and systems, Walter talked about, you know, the methadone program that they had, peaceful movement. I came home from the penitentiary and I got a job at Peaceful Movement doing drug counseling. It was the first time in the history of Massachusetts that a black person had been given a license to dispense methadone. Not a significant an event for any white people, but it was the first time in the history of Massachusetts that it had happened. So that, in some ways, it was significant. Now the end game came because the powers that be, the state agency that's licensed methadone, other big programs in Boston that had an interest, that were able to kind of look over the shoulders and realize that at that time, dispensing methadone was like a license to print money. They wanted to be a part of it. And so, the financial issues begin to push out the moral issues. We're a capitalist system. If you ask anybody about that, they'll say it to you very plainly. We practice capitalism here in America, and what that means is that money matters. And so, given that derivative, things are going to bend that way. So, although it had been the first time they had given a license to a black person, it was also the first time they took it back. And that's kind of the way that works.
And at the same time, it's again, just to that point, when black people, I think about every year they have Black History Month, right? And so, from a perspective of, freed slave, right? So it's like, well, what does Black History Month have to do with the free slaves? So to me, I think of Black History Month has to do with the free slaves. Now you can create a history of yourself. But ironically, what happens is that, black people, in this, because they're not dealing, the who we're going to study is we're going to look at Frederick Douglass. We're not going to look at, the black, the first black man who got a license to distribute methadone. That should be our agenda. That should be who we're going to celebrate whoever that black man was. That's what we're going to celebrate. You know what I'm saying? Because he did something significant for us now. You know what I'm saying? We can do this now. So it's still the same thing. When the man came and he had his Black History Month, you know what I'm saying? I went to every single event. See what I'm saying? I went to every event because I wanted to see. You know what I'm saying? But what I seen was, kind of a way to see it. I seen the mayor's people. Everybody's got this. So that's what Black History Month is. Who they have there, they weren't celebrating. They should have been celebrating Nat Wade, Scanner Wade. He was the person that first incorporated into the community. You know what I'm saying? The first residential therapeutic community. You know what I'm saying? That saved many, many people's lives. You know what I'm saying? So even in that community, so that can be expanded. Well, what's happening in Chicago and what's happening in Illinois and St. Louis and all these places that I'm quite sure have similar stories of black people making contributions in the community. To me, that's what we need to deal with. We need to make it be able to understand now culture, dealing with the issues of unity. Still major issue. Because why? Because the tactic is always divide and conquer. I know if I give Steve the money, and I'm glad Steve got the money because Steve's my friend. If he's got more money, he's going to help me out more. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I realize, if they give Steve too much money, you know what I'm saying? Steve gets a car and a house and a mortgage, and his kids go to Morgan State College and stuff like that. He's got to pay tuition. Then, Steve is not going to be so. It's like, yo, Walter, man. And I'm going to understand Steve. It's like, yo, man, I would never ask you to, this is what you got for you and your family. You know what I'm saying? So they know that like I know that. And so there's people in that position, not to say it, and their position is to be able to easily say, I'm just one person, what can I do? I do the best I can. You know what I do? I make financial contributions. I'll make a financial contribution. That's the best thing to do because that's what white people do. You know what I'm saying? They contribute to the fund. So, it's just, I'm just being but you ain't white. You know what I'm saying? It's not, you're not less than white. You're not better than white. You're just not white. And so, you're black. And we need to understand that because, when they came out with the medicine for hepatitis C, it was a great medicine. You know what I'm saying? I was glad because I knew a lot of people. But my friend Steve said, you know what? The white medicine didn't work for me. Simple as that. So what did they do? They created a new medicine, all right? And so it works. That's cultural competency. That's not about blame, guilt, judgment, or fault. That's being able to say, listen, we know. Why do we know that? Because when you have the black people go to the clinical trials, they are trusted. But so they know what to do. They have them come. They say, you know what? We give them $25 for this. So I can come there and lie to you for $25, and so the data is obscure. You know what I'm saying? So this is what people know. I'm not the only person that knows this. You know what I'm saying? People know this kind of stuff. So that's but it's people like us that can be able to say, listen, you're already there. You're gonna get the money. You know what I'm saying? We got control of this. We know who the researchers are. We know give them the good information so we can get good medicine too. This is how we need to talk with each other. You know what I'm saying? I know you're gonna get the money. Yeah, man. I want you to get the money. See if you can get double. You know what I'm saying? But give them the information they need so they can make the money. The medicine that's going to help us. You know, that to me is all cultural competency. But they have their own definition of that. You know what I'm saying? And it's backed up by the schools. It's backed up by the representatives. It's backed up by a whole lot of, and it's a truth. You know what I'm saying? But it's not a whole truth. You know what I'm saying? And so I think those are the kind of things that, we have to keep in scope. And that to me comes from continuity of services. You know what I'm saying? Like you got a grandfather, you know what I'm saying? You got a business, a construction business. You can look and you can see the generation. The son is the one that made the business what it was. Maybe not even the father, but it's the grandfather, but it's the information passed down from the grandfather to the father to the son. You know what I'm saying? To be able to say, this is now you got a history. You know what I'm saying? Well, if I say, okay, I'm gonna go in the construction business, and you send me to school, and you say, now you're in the construction business, and I come home from school and I say, guess what, Steve? I'm gonna be a carpenter, and Steve says, what do you do? Versus, Gary coming home to him as a carpenter, and his dad's a carpenter, general contractor. So Gary's like saying, Gad, that's what I learned. I learned about studs and this. He said, well, what do you know about that? Well, come on down here. So you think it's even? Do we have the same education? Absolutely we don't. Because Gary got an education that has a practical application so he can think about you. Even if he doesn't decide he doesn't want to be a carpenter. Steve, he doesn't have the same thing, even though he has a great instructor and the instructor wants him to be the best in all of he's not. That's cultural competency to me. All of that stuff is around competency. If you don't deal with that, then you're not competent, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of dealing with my culture. You know what I'm saying? You're not, and I should be competent in that because I'm a professional in that. You know what I'm saying? So when I started a box, I have to ask myself why. Okay, I say this, and I'm trying not to be arrogant about it, but I guess it's an arrogant thing to say. Is who knows more about this than I do? That's black. You know what I'm saying? Who knows more? Who done more? You know what I'm saying? So it all comes from that perspective. I've done that. I've been to New York. I've seen them coming from, taking, the addicts from the shooting gallery, the art gallery, and that makes sense because probably their fathers and their mothers was in the art galleries and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? But we came back. We wasn't taking them to the art galleries. We was taking them to the basketball game and the football game and the baseball game. Why? Because we knew that they had a connection with those things. And you know what? What we found out, they appreciated it. They were able to practice the harm reduction skills that we gave them. Don't get drunk on the train so you don't get thrown off the train. Wait till you get off the train and get. So we were able to take those tools and things that we learned and apply those things and see the outcomes. But there's no one there to measure that. There's no one there to be able to say. We were able to take 12 active injection drug users. We took them into the Boston Neighborhood Network TV station, and we trained them. We said, listen, we want to train our active users to become TV producers, but we're not going to ask them to stop using. Will you do the training for us? And they said, well, we can't mix them up with the regular people. We'll do a special training for them. Because Harvard Community Health gave us $25,000, we were able to, to appease them and give them. But the thing that came out of that, how many producers did we have, Steve?
We had 10 producers?
We actually had 9 producers and 2 crew people, and 1 person dropped out of 12. 2 producers.
I wish they were here tonight, Trudy.
Yes, we needed them.
I know.
You know what's interesting? We
Yeah,
decided,
good.
here's another cultural thing. So I said, we got money now. They giving us the money. Let me have the money and make control over it. So my goal was to give each one of them producers, I was going to buy them cameras. I was going to set them up in their own business. And the disappointing thing to me was I felt like, here's another thing, that they didn't feel confident enough to do that. So none of them jumped on the opportunity to do that. That was saddening to me. You know what I'm saying? Because I seen them as being very competent individuals, but their own self-esteem. You know what I'm saying? They didn't feel like, that they could do that maybe or whatever, but they never took advantage of that. So those are the kind of things, but we knew that we could teach them how to control their use. You know what I'm saying? And not only did they produce 3 TV shows, I think we produced 12 TV shows. And the thing about it, for me, we have all those shows. We have all that information. You know what I'm saying? We have it now in our own can. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad that I had a white director. Okay, I'm glad she was a woman. You understand what I'm saying? Because she allowed me to have the proposal. She allowed me to have access to the money. She allowed me to do the things that, I said I was going to do to bring the outcome for the AIDS Bureau. And we were able to do that, you know what I'm saying? Because she felt confident enough about me to allow me to, to do that. And it's different. It's a cultural compass. It's the kind of thing. I go to other agencies that ran by black people. You know what? They're never going to show me the proposal. Can I see the proposal? I'm supposed to see it, ain't I? Yeah, well, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You want a job? You know what I'm saying? So, not to try to have judgment about it, but it's to really be able to say and to keep pushing it. This is what competency is all about. You know what I'm saying? And I learned all that from Edith Springer. And what's my man's name now down at the New York Harm Reduction? Allen, you know what I'm saying? They taught, it was like what they gave us was gold. You know what I'm saying? But if you ain't coming back and you're not in a position to apply it, then, and if you're coming from a recovery basis, then it's like you're going to take the money like many places did, but they didn't do the work. And what's the sad thing about it? No one held them accountable to do the work. It was okay for you to take the money because the money was there and they had to do something about it. But I really know they wasn't going to mess up those relationships, you know what I'm saying? Because the recovery community was the professionals to them. As long as you got everybody looking at that saying, oh, how many years you got clean, Steve? Oh, Steve's got 5 years clean. Steve's got 10 years clean. So that all is perceived as professional. You know what I'm saying? Which is it's a serious misnomer. You know what I'm saying? Because all that says is one size fits all. You know what I'm saying? And so people were open to be able to say, well, this is an option. Try this, try that, try this. And that's what I say about those mothers did. Those mothers, they just kept trying. You got another option, Gary? Mm-hmm. You give them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Okay. Whatever you say. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because they wanted their child not to die. It became bigger than whether they used drugs. So just let them come home and use. Go to the needle exchange and get the needles. They did whatever they needed to do. And I'm so grateful about that. And I think, that's what we supposed to do too. You know what I'm saying? We keep finding, you know what I'm saying? They say the definition of insanity. This kills me because they say this shit, but no one calls them one. You know what I'm saying? They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expect a different result. And that's what happens in our community all the time. That's why you keep having new people. That's why no one's passing the information down to no one, because it's insane. Yes, it is. It's insane. Yeah. And this money, like Steve said, to me, we're still the slaves. We're just a different type of slave. We're not picking cotton anymore. We're picking Louis Vuitton bags, you know what I'm saying? And picking the Louis Vuitton bags brings in much more yield than it would be to pick a bale of cotton today, you know what I'm saying? So it's just slavery on a whole nother level, you know what I'm saying? They say that we spend more money than everybody else. You know what I'm saying? The Boston Public Health Commission, they did an analysis on wealth.
Health of Boston.
Health of Boston. They said the average white family make $250,000 a year, and they say the average wealth of a black family is $8.
I believe it's their worth. The worth.
The worth.
Of an average white family is $250,000.
Their worth, yeah. Their worth. Their net worth, What are they worth to America? $8 versus $250,000?
That's because they have mortgages, they own stuff, they have generational wealth that has been passed from generation to generation. And so for most black families, they don't have that advantage. And so there is no accumulation, because if you wake up today and you're broke, the odds of you waking up tomorrow and not being broke are very thin.
That's right. So generational wealth actually starts with the third generation. That's when you can have generational wealth. You know what I'm saying? That's my perspective of that. And so I realize I'm the first grandfather in my family in 2 generations. That says, that a lot of the black men don't live a long time. You know what I'm saying? So for me, when I think about that, I claim that. I say, for me, that's, I'm a grandfather. So to me, what my kids, what I'm saying, they get pissed off and angry and upset at me because I'm not doing what the norm does. I'm saying, I'm not trying to get you to be a father. I'm trying to get you to think about the value of being a grandfather. But for them as a father, their concerns are what kind of father I was. You know what I'm saying? They can understand, well, the father, I wouldn't be the man that I am today because I have to keep dealing with you. But the beneficiary of that is your children. You know what I'm saying? And their attitude is, based on what you did to me, I have to change this attitude. You think I'm going to let you mess with my children? You understand what I'm saying? But to me, that's like, I work, that's where I'm at with it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I believe this is where it starts. And so no matter what, I'll die. And maybe at some point in time after I'm gone, they'll realize that. But because I know that's a fact, you know what I'm saying? That's what I live for, you know what I'm saying? And I realize my quality of life, because of that, has changed. You know what I'm saying? I have a greater reason to live. You know what I'm saying? And to be prosperous and to be concerned about the next man. Because why? Because that's what grandfathers do. You know what I'm saying? They do greater than what the fathers do. That's why they call them grandfathers. You know what I'm saying? But my kids ain't trying to hear that, you know what I'm saying? But to me, it's all harm reduction. You know what I'm saying? It's all harm reduction. You know what I'm saying? It's going to pay off in the long run. And that's what harm reduction is, Yes.
Thank you. I mean, I think the production project that I want to see the episodes, and I want everyone to see the episodes, and that should be a project that got lifted up for everyone to know about.
So we need to digitize some of that tape, right?
I know I rolled us back a little from what you were saying. I was still thinking about it.
We have the tape, and we have access to it. So it's probably a financial issue, if nothing else.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's old.
We have old 8 mm tapes, but we
It
also
needs to
have
be
the,
digitized.
right, and we have the VHS tapes, right?
Yeah,
We have
but it still
VHS.
need to be
It all
digitized.
needs to be
They
digitized.
can all, and they can all be done at, like this. I know there's a place down in Revere that they do that.
Oh yeah,
You know, like,
yeah.
And we have
We just
we
need a
have-
budget.
we have probably hundreds of hours of tape because we tape almost everything we done. We taped it.
So we were really fortunate in that time, you know. First to have Walter as a leader, but then as we looked around, right, like these are the people that we were getting high together, or we were in this particular place in time in Roxbury. But there were some very talented individuals
Mm-hmm.
who just happened to have dope habits.
That's it.
But
Let's say that again. There's very talented individuals.
yeah, and
That
that's not
are
not
using dope.
unusual.
No, but I know it's not at all, but I think people need to hear that a
And
lot
when,
more.
and when you put that together with what they're saying now, because now what they're saying is that all the stuff we looked at was all trauma. So now we can really push it and really, solidify that for me. Well, what were these people doing? They weren't getting high. They were self-medicating themselves. That's what they was doing. And they self-medicated themselves to go to work. You know what I'm saying? And they just didn't understand enough about tolerance. You know what I'm saying? They didn't know about a lot of things, So a lot of them life wasn't destroyed with the drug. A lot of the problems came in the commission of the drug. You know what I'm saying? Had they understood more about the methadone program, we understand it. We did a lot of research about methadone. You know what I'm saying? We know, if anything, we'd be able to say, listen, let's give you some methadone so you can go back to work tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? There's no need for you to lose your job. So we know the carpenters, you know what I'm saying? And we seen this, I seen this from the, a lot of the white users, you know what I'm saying? The, construction workers. Why we don't pain, injuries, getting up early in the morning. So we now know if it was stress then, if it was trauma then, it's trauma now. If it was trauma now, it was trauma then. You can't, you know what I'm saying? So you gotta be able to keep making that connection, to be able to keep looking at, the same thing. Otherwise, we'd be in the same situation with like the marijuana. It was the marijuana mania, and then it was the abstinence, and then it was, evidence based about, a motivational syndrome. And now the shit's legal anywhere. Not only is it legal for recreational, now they're talking about medicinal. You know what I'm saying? That's all driven by the money. But in order to have the money drive it, you got to have the data to support the money. And so we know this stuff. Why? Because you have enough people who are using it. They're using it in adverse ways. They decided that all this other medicine they had wasn't good. They went out of the country. They went here. They got the medicine, and they brought it back. And one of the things that makes it good, white people do. They share that information. You know what I'm saying? And so it makes it accessible. And I'm not saying that black people don't share the information, but it's like, saying when you have a culture that's, been pitted against each other. We can give Steve some money, you know what I'm saying? And we'll give you this much here, and you're gonna get away. And then, Steve's got some shit, and everybody's looking at Steve, and if Steve don't want to share it, he's gonna want to move around where you're at, because he knows you ain't gonna want to take it, because it's like, shit, we shared you. You didn't get here by yourself. So it all kind of melds together, but you have to have continuity. You can't just keep on bringing a new person in without being able to have intergenerational dialogue and intergenerational collaboration. That's the thing, to me, that's missing in this whole kind of thing. You have a whole new group of people each time, and I don't understand how the hell that happens. You know what I'm saying? I really don't know. That's the most sophisticated kind of thing, but it happens. You see it now. You go and you look, and everybody at one time used to look like me in the substance abuse field, or many of the people.
Oh, Walter, the simple answer to that is capitalism.
I know you keep saying
Because
He's dropping all the wisdom here.
It really is.
Right.
When I went to work for the city of Boston ran 5 methadone clinics.
Mm-hmm.
The city ran 5 methadone clinics. Now all the clinics in Boston are for profit.
Mm.
The city doesn't have any clinics.
Right.
And so if you look into what happened, why that model changed, is capitalism. Because if I hire you to work at my methadone clinic and you're still there 10 years from now making a good salary, being happy, being able to take care of your family, and I'm talking to her about establishing a new methadone program, we're not going to bring you back. We're going to hire somebody with a first degree that's going to work for half of your money and start over. And so that's capitalism. What capitalism does is devalues the person and recycles that position. And so as I recycle that position, I can do it cheaper. I don't necessarily can do it better, but for sure I can do it cheaper. And so if that's my goal, if that's the model that's going to work for me, then we can do that.
And so you have it, right? As you said, we talk about See, now all the terms they're talking about now, everybody's talking about it, professionally talking about institutionalized racism. So institutionalized racism is entwined in capitalism. Right?
Oh, for sure.
So for me, the scariest thing is when my black brother Steve gets into that system, he becomes more of a racist than the original racist. Gary. He becomes more of a racist than Gary is. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So to me, that's just frightening. It's like, oh, God damn, Steve, man. You know what I'm saying? You were down.
Gary.
Now you're like Gary. No, you're worse than Gary. You're like, no, Gary, get out the way. Let me do this. But it's saying, and then you have the thing that's terrible about it, you have all of these educated people coming out of the schools and getting in the system. Like the social service. So I know that. People that work in the welfare department, it's the same thing. Once they get in there and be like, all I want to do in here is get me some training. Soon as I get me enough experience, 1 year, I'm out of here because they see it. And to me, it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get in here, and what I'm going to try to do, provokes the slavery again, is I'm going to try to have my own business. Okay? And therefore, but you begin to start looking at and seeing when they looked at the disparities in the outcome. You still, on an average, end up with $8 worth of wealth. Because what happens is that you're dealing with your own. It's the Dr. Joy DeGroot. She talked about some very serious things. She talked about, the impact of trauma. She talked about what was the name of the book? She talked about trauma for African Americans. She talked about African American slave traumatic trauma. She talked about it, and she said these were the 3 things that come out of that. This is the thing. So when they talk about the angry black man, okay, so that's defined as trauma. She said, ever-present anger is a result of the 400 years of slavery. It's, ever-present anger. So when you think about that, ever-present anger. So it's very easy now for you to look at the angry black man, but now you've got to look at him from a perspective of being traumatized. He's not the angry black man. He has ever-present anger. She talked about vacant self-esteem. Okay, so it's like saying, self-esteem, vacant esteem. So you don't think you have vacant esteem because you wear Louis Vuitton, everyone's looking at you, but you don't realize you have vacant esteem. Your sense of self is outside, it's not internalized, okay? And she talked about racist socialization. And she said, those, are the effects of slave trauma. So now when we start thinking about this, those are the kind of things, evidence-based research, black people should understand that and be functional from that. Scientists, researchers, doctors, they should be responding to that if they are culturally competent. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no question now they're talking about institute rioting, you know, everything, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? So we know this information, and I understand what Steve was saying, you know what I'm saying, about it's driven by capitalism. But you have to understand, for us as a culture, what does it mean to be driven by capitalism? What does that mean for you? If you're driven by capitalism, your situation can never ever get better. It cannot ever get better. So to me, it's like the most sophisticated form of slavery that I can imagine in my own mind, because you have slaves now that you see them, you know, it's like, I did everything for you. I'm not giving you another dime. Not understanding, listen, I never seen a U-Haul fall apart. I can imagine what a person that feels that way is doing their deathbed, knowing they got all of this money and wealth and shit. And all the people that shouldn't matter in their life is there, and the wife saying, well, I'm still his wife or married, and he's creating a shitload of wills to try to get him to this lawyer and that lawyer, whatever. But to understand and feel like these people are going to get your shit anyway. They're going to get your shit. They're your family, you know what I'm saying? If you don't get it, they're going to break in your house and shit, you know what I'm saying? They'll be fighting over the will and shit, but they're going to get theirs because they feel like they've been traumatized by you. That you decided and chose them over a dollar. You know what I'm saying? You ever looked at them and said, I look at my children and say, listen, you know what? I want to make sure that I'm the most important thing to them. I don't want them to feel like, you know, he ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? That's my future, because, you know what I'm saying, how the government treat me, you know what I'm saying, there's no telling what they might do. But, you know, I gotta rely, I want to rely on them, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to have that, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to. Why? Because I've seen too much of it. You know what I'm saying? I've seen it too much. It become too normal. You know what I'm saying? And that ain't helpful. You know what I'm saying? When you think about all the work that was done, and people talk about the same breath, they talk about how this person did this to free us, and now this person did more or whatever. To free you for what? You know what I'm saying? To free you what? Well, you know, what do you, I'm not understanding about, you know, voters, you know, they gave you voters 40 years. You got to vote for 40 years. 40 years. They made a law that saying no one could own any three medias, all the media sources. 40 years. Why? Because they realized in 2 generations they'll forget about this shit. You know, and so the people who need to be concerned about that, like the methadone program, like Ladder Skin was first incorporated. You know, he was so aware, he knew. What he did was he said this. He said, you know, anybody that graduates from first, they become the owner of first. They the ones that get to choose the board of directors. So he wanted to make sure that the people who graduated from that had control. So just like to me, the methadone program that was earmarked for the community, this here was earmarked to be able to say as a graduate, when you come out of this program, that now you are the owner of this program. You got more power than the board of directors. How do you take a program like that away? It's because you're not looking at these people as the new, you know, the freedom fighters. You're not looking at them. It ain't over. You know what I'm saying? It ain't over yet, because people keep saying it ain't over. And they keep saying you got to do your own work. You got to heal yourself. But they ain't, you know what I'm saying? So they keep saying this kind of stuff and saying it, but it's not, you're not getting the kind of education you need to get in their institutions. And somehow or another, the capitalism is so much, they know. You know what I'm saying? They know. It's like Steve said, you know, it's like they want to get some new people because they want to perpetuate the money. And I don't care if you perpetuate the money for you all. You know, so I'm not trying to be separatist or nothing, but I'm realizing, you know, the reason why I'm here to have this conversation before you, because somebody was saying, you know, he was fine, he was gonna die. Steve's gonna die, you know, 100 years ago to vote. And I say, well, if Steve got a chance to vote, who the fuck would he vote for in his best interest? They let him vote. They let Steve vote. You know what I'm saying? He would be killing his own goddamn self to vote. Yeah, I voted for so and so. Yeah, hang up. You know what I'm saying? So I see that. You know what I'm saying? I see that kind of thing. And so to me, it's like we have to keep just dealing with that. You know what I'm saying? Frederick Douglass did his job. Steve Wright did his job. You know what I'm saying? We need to know. No one's doing to me what Steve's doing over there, you know what I'm saying, as a person of color. You know, and to me, it's like, it's important, you know what I'm saying? It's not only important for him, it's important for, you know, when his grandchildren, when they look up and they say, do you know who your grandfather was? Who was your grandfather? Steve Wright? Was he? Yeah, he pioneered this. That to me is how, you know, it might seem a little foolish, but you know, when I see all these kids, especially during this pandemic, I've seen all these people talking about, oh, I haven't seen my grandfather. I see him crying. I haven't seen my grandfather or my grandmother in a year. You know what I'm saying? So why do they do that? Because these people, you know, are the ones that say, my grandpa came from Czechoslovakia, and it was just me, and you know, and he didn't even know how to speak English, and he had to learn how to speak English. You know what I'm saying? He would say, Steve, he was a drug addict. He didn't even know he could get a job. Now he knows how to save people's lives. That's, you know what I'm saying? Instead of looking at him and saying, oh, Steve, yeah, he had 25 years clean. Fuck. If you wash for every 25 years, you should be clean every fucking 25 years, unless you didn't have no water. You know what I'm saying?
I gotta help you guys out, right? We produced a TV show for years, right? Walter was the host, and I was the director. So I know that you're too polite to be able to call us, right? But I don't know how long the tape is gonna run. But at some point, you need to say, okay, thank you. Right. Stop the tape.
I have one more thing.
And I'm sorry to be that way, you know what I'm saying?
But listen,
I think we might have to have another show.
We worked for years,
this might
right?
turn into a show. And
This
not
is
just
Walter's gift,
you know.
is that he's very loquacious. Is that the right word?
Mm-hmm. That's the right word.
Just check.
Okay.
As long as Walter's all right,
So,
as long as he's all
I'll
right
be
with that
all
word,
right
I'm not
when you
gonna.
explain it to me what it means.
Yeah.
You know, I'm quite sure
Then
if
I'll
Steve
know.
said it, it'll be all right. But you know, one thing I want to do is I want to know what it means.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So I thought to close it out, we didn't do this with Gary, but I was thinking just to close it out, if you have one funny story around some outreach and harm reduction, or if you just want to tell us like a favorite song or a favorite place or a favorite moment that you had doing harm reduction. If you can, I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't ask you this when I let you know. Or maybe even something that just grounds you in the work. Whatever.
No. You know, I'm gonna give you a funny story. The funny story is right here, right now, today, right? That we could sit here and we'd have to do sessions. You know, you'd have to, your job would be to focus them better.
Okay, I'll try.
But
I think he's doing all right.
it's only a question of your time. But there are some very important things that we've learned over time, and nobody can take that away from us. So what happened when the pandemic first started, and then we had racial reckoning, and people looked around and they said, damn, maybe we didn't treat black folks right? So it was about 3 months there, right? I got phone calls, people were like, Steve, are you available? Can you come on Tuesday? We'll give you an honorarium. And that's about 3 good months, right? And then it was gone. But, you know, so that's my funny story, is that times change and things change, and, you know, and it's cyclical. You know what I mean? If you're valuable and important and people love you today, that doesn't mean that that's how it's going to look tomorrow. So, you know, just try and keep all that stuff in perspective. Try and go out and do the work. You know, that's all it's about. Doing the work.
I think I said above all I need to say, you know what I'm saying? But I will say this here, that I always said this, that if you're the smartest person in your circle, you're done. And you know, one thing Steve said, I always said that, if shit hit the fan, all those people that I had, because they became the pathfinders. This is a movement, pathfinders. And all those people that was in that movement, I'll try to find them. Because out of that, I found loyalty. You know what I'm saying? Those folks were very loyal, united. And not only that, they became, the people in the health center, they were afraid to have them be there because they liked their stuff. But what they found out was because those people were so loyal, and because we had a needle exchange and we fed them every day, you couldn't do nothing to none of those people that worked in that health center. You couldn't take their shit. Something was stolen. They went back and retrieved it. They knew in their circle who did it, and they were able to fix it. You know what I'm saying? So that to me is the true, benefits and the value of, what we do. You know what I'm saying? It's create unity and trust. So, that I say that, and say, I have a good friend and he's brilliant. You know what I'm saying? He's brilliant. And that's why, I keep him in my circle. You know what I'm saying? He was a little less smart. He might be gone now.
I think that's a good way to close out. So thank you all for being here. I know I've learned so much just sitting here with you tonight, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot about what the word harm reduction and love means. And we got to keep learning. We got to keep talking to people who've been around doing this work for a long time before us to know its history and its true roots.